What's up, y'all? This is the Adapt or Die podcast, a podcast that explores new and relevant ideas for the purposes of self-growth and helping you live a more fulfilled lifestyle. My name is Armel Talla.
And my name is Ben Smith. We're two university students pursuing our own journeys of self-growth with the hopes of sharing our findings with you.
Welcome back to the Adapt or Die podcast. It's your host, Armel Talla, and
I'm Ben. I'm good to be here.
Happy to have you, Ben. Hey, y'all better get used to having Ben around, man, because he's going to be a crucial part of this podcast, and you'll see why today. But in today's episode of the podcast, we're going to be discussing time. And some of y'all believe, some of y'all may say, time is money. My time is valuable. Ain't no man going to waste my time. However you talk about time, we all know it's important. But in today's episode, it's going to be split into two parts. But in this first part, we're going to be focusing on time from a philosophical and scientific approach. And I already know what y'all are saying. Let me get to part two. When's part two coming out?
Whoa.
You know what I'm saying? Because some people take approach. They're like science and philosophy. They're like, this isn't, what am I going to get out of this? But look, you guys have to understand that this is all about applying it to your life, right? But in order to be able to apply a concept to your life, you need to understand the theory behind it. All applications originated from theories.
Yep.
Exactly. So I just want you guys to, kind of value these parts of the podcast where we dive into the science and nuances, a little bit more technical, but we're going to try to keep it in a way we can all understand, because I promise you, I don't fully understand these things.
And to clarify, these ideas that we're going over are some of the most interesting and mind-boggling ideas that I have ever come across. They are literally life-altering in terms of how I view the world. So this is not at all some nerdy stupid this is very much applicable and interesting to your life today, tomorrow, and for the rest of your life.
And we're gonna get started, but let me just leave one thing to say. Reason why we're going to keep and continue to, go over these theoretical aspects of, a topic that we want is because I want you guys to have a good understanding of the theory, because once you do, you get to then find your own applications instead of depending on someone else's use cases for a concept, right? And that's going to just make things so much easier for yourself, because once you find what works for you, you become your own person. So I guess that's a good way to start it off. Let's stop talking and get right to it.
Yeah, let's hop into it. Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the philosophy, I want to go over kind of how time functions in relation to space.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we generally think of our universe as a space, right? We can move three-dimensionally, so we can move up, down, forward, back, side to side, etc. We're used to that. We know that. We can freely move through space, right?
Yeah.
Now think about time. We can't really move through time. Time is ordered. It is flowing.
Mm-hmm.
Time really happens to us as we experience it, right?
Yeah.
Time is passing at 1 second per second for our entire life.
Mm-hmm.
And space is fundamentally different from that, in that we can freely move through space, right? And when you think about time, we often can imagine the future, right? We can imagine how the future will go based on our present circumstances, because time is ordered,
mm-hmm.
right? So because time has an order, we can almost predict what will happen in a sense. Obviously, no one can tell the future, but later today you're gonna eat some food, you're gonna do some work, maybe go have some fun, whatever.
In 10 years I'm gonna have kids, which is actually crazy to think about.
That is crazy. It's
actually crazy, but
when you think about space, if I have an object in my left hand and an object in my right hand, they really have no bearing on each other, right? They don't, just because I have one object in this hand and one in the other hand, it doesn't really affect either
mm-hmm.
of them. They're just there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's a fundamental idea of how we view space versus time. And a lot of us don't think of time as being an innate aspect of the universe, but it really is, right? Let's say on Tuesday, we're going to get coffee at Starbucks, right?
Yeah.
You have to tell me a place and a time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's important, right? Because if you don't tell me the time,
we going to show up at 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. I'll be 12. You're going to be all right, cool, p.m.
Yeah,
and I'm I meant bright o'clock at night, straight at night. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. So the time is not just something that happens to us. It is actually an aspect of our universe. And when we specify where we're going, like we just did, we're going to be at Starbucks. If you let's say you say the X Starbucks, technically that's a 3-dimensional point in time.
Mm-hmm.
We think about it 2-dimensionally because we live in the Earth is round, but it's effectively flat to us. So
Yeah.
you have like cross sections of streets. You just give an address. So
Yeah.
that's it feels like 2-dimensional, but it really is a 3-dimensional point in space, and then it's defined by another dimension of time. And when you do that, we call that an event. And that's very important because if you don't have that aspect of time, you don't have an event.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I kind of want to start there as just a basis of how
Sure.
we think of time.
Okay. And so does this kind of allude to the fact as in like, because you're saying there is time, because there's space when you give a location, right? There's three in space itself, there's 3 dimensions, and then you're talking about time. So you're saying like both of these coming together. Is this what people mean when they say like time is the 4th dimension?
Exactly. Space and time they're not separate, right? Space is, time doesn't happen to us while we're in space. Space and time are effectively, they're married together at all times.
And you'll know this if you take just an intro to physics course, because every single equation has time in it. And you're like, dog, let me just solve this without time. But go on.
Yeah, no. So that's an important just idea. Time is an important aspect of our universe. It is a dimension of our universe. It is the 4th dimension of space time. It is space time. Okay, so that's it. I want to start with that. Now let's talk about the 2 major philosophies of time and how we can view time. So a guy by the name of J.M.E. McTaggart, he coined basically 2 major ideas of time. The A series of time and the B series of time. So the A series is how we generally view time. It's our ordinary view of life. We have a past, it is set. We have memories, experiences, whatever. We have a future, it is not set, it's a mystery. We don't know where we'll be in 10 years, 5 years. I don't even know where I'm going to be tonight, right? And then we have a present, and that present is reality, okay? The reason you exist, to me at least, is because I'm talking to you right here, right now, right? We wouldn't say that, like the Romans exist, right? They're in the past because they're not now.
Yeah.
They're in the past. So what makes something real is the fact that it exists right now. Okay.
Yeah, I would actually want to like kind of be the devil's advocate here and then object to that and saying like the Romans are real, right?
So now you're kind of hinting at the second theory of time. So you kind of jumped ahead of me already.
Oh, big brain Mel.
Big brain Mel.
Armelicus, Melius. Remember that.
That's coming up later down the line. So the second theory of time is the B series. Okay. In this is kind of a hard idea to picture, but just bear with me for a second. When you go to the movies, what is a movie?
A movie. Like what?
How would you explain how a movie works?
So for those that don't understand how movies were first created, because it's like the fact that we have movies, it's insane. Like the way someone solved the thing of like, yo, this is how we're gonna make motion pictures, and the name I just hinted at with the name. It's just motion. It's a bunch of pictures, right? Individual pictures taken like boom, boom, boom. Like, if you're watching the YouTube channel, you see me doing robot moves, but like it's like like how they you draw the picture of the ball and people would flip the page and you see it.
That's exactly what it is. It's a sequence of 2-dimensional pictures, and the change in those pictures, the amount of time between those pictures is so small that we effectively view a movie as continuous, right? So that's similar to how the B series of time works. Think about our universe as a sequence of 3-dimensional slices, or 3-dimensional blocks is a better word. 3-dimensional blocks, and each block is a slice of time. Okay. Now, this is important because when you think about that, if the universe is really just a bunch of it's just a bunch of consecutive blocks, that raises the question, similar to a movie. Well, if everything's just consecutive blocks, and we're just moving through those blocks, right? Our experience of time is just us passing through those different blocks.
Yeah.
Are the blocks in the future? Are those future blocks? Are they set, or are they yet to be known? And this B series of time basically says that they're set. And that the only reason we consider the present moment to be special is because we're experiencing it. But inherently, according to the B series of time, it isn't special. And so this is kind of where
it's just a block of time with
right. It's just a certain block in time.
Okay.
And so kind of going back to your question, are the Romans real? And you said, I might fight you on that. According to the B series of time, everything is real. The Romans are real. We just simply exist in a different block of reality.
Everything that existed is real because
yeah.
So you're telling me people in the A series would just say no, they're not real.
Exactly. And so yeah,
so that means like most people live in a I guess a kind of a between point between these two series.
Right. We call that presentism. So presentism is right here, right now. The only thing that is real is right in front of you, right here at this moment in time, right?
But what do you call the people that kind of live in both the realms of A and B?
So if you're the B in both,
yeah.
So I'll get to that in a second. So the B series would say that everything exists, every point in time exists, every block, if you will, if that analogy follows, right? That all makes sense. We're just moving through different blocks of time. Every block exists. We're just simply experiencing the change in a certain block, and that's our experience of time. Now, you just said, what if you're in between?
Right. I mean, I feel like that's what most people are, because like, no one is questioning that the Romans were real. You know what I'm saying? Like when we look into history, and I guess because you would have to say most people think of the things as like, yo, I'm live here, I'm right now. There's a past, there's a present, but people believe that the past was is still exists, right? So, but hold on, I think I might maybe be connecting here. So, people understand the whole thing of like everything's relative. Like if you know me, I've been saying this for a little bit, and it's not like I made it, but I've just been saying like everything is relative. Like literally, everything is so subjective. Everything is based on what you know, what you believe, and what's around you. And so, I guess in a way that there's not, like in B series thinking, there's not a past, a present, or a future, but it's all relative to the fact that there's something that happened before and something that happened after us.
Right. A great way to think about the B series of time is to think about how God views time. So if anyone who's familiar with Christianity knows that God exists outside of time. So if you were to think, God can jump to any point in time, however he feels like, or I don't want to say jump. He doesn't really jump to a place in time. He can just kind of like, it's hard to explain, right? But he sees time outside of our four-dimensional universe, right? He sees all of the blocks at the same time. So he can effectively manipulate anything he feels like at one time. So the question of reality, I just mean existence, right? So to him, everything exists at the same time. Everything's existing. And our version in eternalism, our time is simply us passing through it, right? And the presentism, the A series, the Romans, while they are real in the sense that they were real, we have a footprint of them. They are in the past. We have documents about them. We have their architecture. We know they existed, right? But they don't exist right now. They aren't real right now, right? And that's the big difference. Presentism, right now, Romans don't exist. Eternalism, right now, Romans do exist.
Yeah.
They do. It's a really hard idea to like pull out of your head, because if the Romans exist, does our future exist as well? And it's kind of an interesting question, right?
Yeah.
Like, is our future set? Is it like, am I in 5 years? Is Ben in 5 years? Is he already like? Is he solidified?
So that's saying that like everything that's gonna happen that happened is already in a block. Like there is a block of time. It's like you are able to see your entire timeline. It's like, well, not you are able to see it, but your entire timeline is already laid out.
Right. Like God could see your entire timeline.
Like he knows when I'm having kids. Guys, I'm still tripping about that. 10 years I'm going to have kids. But, okay, who knows? It might change, but that's the estimated. But, like, so he's able to see the entire thing, and, like, and so the fact that, so would God be seeing things in a B series way? Or it doesn't even matter to him. He's everything.
So this is where things get really interesting. Imagine time travel. Okay, so imagine that you and me, we wake up and we have the innate ability to travel back to, let's say, just say the Romans, for example. We can, at 10 o'clock, we can go back and travel and just see the Romans. And then we can travel back to present, and boom. We're moving through the eternalistic view of time, and we're just moving through different blocks.
Yeah.
We're finding different blocks. We're just going there at certain events, at certain points in space-time. That's all we're doing. Now, an internalistic view, that all of those things exist, but think about our perspective of time. Those things, when we went to Rome, let's say when we get back from Rome, that was a day for us, right? So our time, right? Our day was spent in Rome, and that's how we perceived time, right? And that's our view of time separate from the block universe that we just talked about, right? So even if, does that make sense? You see what I'm kind of getting at?
Keep going.
If the eternalistic view exists and we could travel to different points in time, then our version of time is simply us traveling to different points in time, not necessarily the block universe of time.
Yeah.
Which then brings then you kind of almost, it's a trippy thing to think about, right? Because if yesterday for me means I went to Rome and today means I'm here, it kind of gets to this weird well, I thought everything existed at the same time. How can two blocks, how can I go from one block to another and then back to a different block, and all of that exists, but in the same block? If that makes sense, in a sequence of blocks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very trippy because going between blocks adds another layer of time to traveling between time.
I need to add something here. So if every block is existing at the same time, right? And you haven't even brought up the point that actually interested me the most, was the whole idea of how you can take this concept and kind of view it into your own life. But this is to bring up something to do with it. So if every block exists within its own time, right? So you have the Romans occurring what the Romans are doing right now in their block of time, they're just living. And in our block of time, we're just living.
And real quick, I just want to say, we're saying block is we're kind of saying it in a macro sense. We're saying the Roman block of time. A block of time would really be an infinitesimally small number of time, such that it feels continuous. So the blocks there's so many blocks.
It's just so.
Just to clarify.
So me saying whatever I was saying 10 minutes ago is already in its own
Right, that's a block. Every the small thing about the smallest duration of time you can think of, that's a block.
Okay, that's insane. So and it's all happening at the same time.
And so our experience of change between blocks is what creates time for us.
Okay, so the way I'm viewing it is let's say there was I guess the Roman, if we're thinking of the Roman block, think about it as in movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a Roman movie that's going on. Then there is the Greek movie that happened before, and then there was the British Empire movie.
Exactly.
And so you just would go to that, you go into a movie and watching is kind of being in that time, but the movie just continues to go on ever and ever, forever and ever, and you're just moving through whichever. That's right. Time travel is real, y'all. Time travel is real. I came to the conclusion, if we can think about this, we can create it. But so now, with that being said, right, knowing that if everything existed, your future and your future that's already you in 10 years is already defined, right?
So here's where things get really, really interesting for me, at least. If you believe in the B series and your future is already defined, similar to how your past is defined, because everything is defined.
Yeah.
That would mean your future is set, right? Now, when you think about that, if you believe that something in the future exists, let's say I think in 5 years, I graduate UT with an engineering degree, Hokum, with engineering degree, and I have a job. I firmly believe that is part of my destiny, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter. If I firmly believe that, if I think that has already happened, and I say already happened as in it already exists in the block universe. That is the block that I am moving to. Those blocks, I'm just simply moving towards those blocks. That's a very powerful belief if you think about that, right? Because that gives you a level of confidence that almost no one else would have. Yeah. And it's very, obviously it's kind of a leap of faith to say, well, I'm going to have an engineering degree and this X job at, the more details you provide, the less likely the more leap of faith you'd have to take to get there, right?
But it's more viewing it it's gonna happen. It's not if. It's a matter of when.
Right.
You
So-
don't know when in that and you don't know which block success is coming for you, but you just know that like there is success in that block.
Yeah.
And this elusive something that I always say that it's not philosophically proven, it's not scientifically proven, nothing like that. But I have this idea, and it's bothered me for a long time that if the fact that we can think of something, right? The fact that we can curate an idea of like how I bet back in the day they were like, man, I really wish there was a way I could wash my clothes without me going to the river and they thought about that. So if this B series way of thinking like really is if we take the B series way of viewing time, right? To me, what I'm thinking is like all they did was like somehow they broke the code of the universe and were able to pull an idea that happened in a different block, and it just plop right
That's
into their
actually
brain.
an insane idea. They just pulled a future idea block and put it in their own block.
It's like sometimes like those ideas and like it's like the block doesn't know how to contain itself sometimes, and little things spill into someone's brain that leads them to that point. I think it has to happen that way, because if everything is already defined, right? The only way someone's gonna get there is if they're dropped that subtle image and thought. I mean, we can argue about how it is, but this is my own philosophy. And remember, Armelicus Melius, that's my philosopher name. But so that idea is just like, it's more like there's like these, it's like the future block kind of leaks out ideas and stuff that may just get dropped into it. But
that's
it's
a very
again,
interesting thought.
it's all just a philosophy. But let's get back to the real philosophers.
Yeah, and so when we're talking, so what you alluded to, right, is kind of, you hit on this earlier. You're not thinking of what I'm going to do in the future, right? You already decided what you're going to do because you've already done it. It already exists. You're deciding how you're going to get there.
Ooh, yeah.
And I feel like that's an important like shift, right?
Yeah.
I know I've done this. I know this exists. I know this is going to happen. All right, how am I going to get there?
Exactly.
And I think that makes the problem makes it easier. Because when you already have the answer, finding the solution is much easier because
you know where you're
headed, right? But when you don't know where you're headed, you're finding a solution to a problem that you don't even have the question to.
Yeah.
And that's kind of scary for me.
Yeah.
But and we can go circles around this all day. You know, does the future exist? Is it said? Is it not said? How do we get there? How does that play into our confidence, manifestation? There's so many questions. But another idea I'd like to hit on is how the B series of time can also help us to alleviate pain and suffering. That sounds like a very strange idea.
Yeah,
like, how does
that sounds like this sounds like something someone should have already thought of if it's going to alleviate pain and suffering.
And you know, I will say this: your psyche, your mental is how you think is very, very potent. It's very strong and pervasive.
Because I came to this realization, the way we perceive things, as me and Ben, we recorded a secret Patreon episode, and those might come out later down the road. We'll see. But I talked about how there's this how my coach, he gave one of the greatest advice and one of the greatest formulas when it comes to life. What was it? It's E plus R equals O. An event plus your reaction equals an outcome.
Right.
And it's just more to be like the way you perceive reality, the way you perceive, like the way we see things, because like I said, everything is relative, everything is subjective, affects actually what is done, what happens, what goes on in your life.
Exactly. Like that event, the way you view that event, how you attack that event, how you try to have a solution. When I say event, I mean most of the time, if it's an important event, it's usually a good or a bad thing. So if it's a bad thing, it's a problem. How you attack, how you react to everything is based on how you perceive the event, right?
Yeah.
So how you look at something is not everything, but it's a large majority of how you react to something. And so kind of going back to this idea of alleviating pain and suffering, think about, the loss of a loved one, or maybe you enjoyed a certain part of your life to a great extent. In the B or C years of time, those people, those experiences, they exist. They exist, just like the present exists. So maybe your father, mother, best friend, if they passed away, which is tragic, and everyone dies, unfortunately, you can think about them as existing, but simply not in your own block.
Yeah.
And you know that you might say, well, that's what good does that do me? You know, like maybe that doesn't
that was
help
my
me much.
first question. I was like, I mean, like that's already how I feel like that's already how people view it, you know?
But I think, and so this kind of goes back to the question of reality. Remember when we said that in the presentism view, the A series, things that exist they only exist if they're in right here, right now.
The moment that I'm in.
And in the B series, everything exists.
Mm-hmm.
It does. They're just not part of certain blocks. And, you know, maybe that doesn't do you much good. I actually found it very helpful personally. I thought it was a very strong and a very powerful idea. I don't know what you think of that, but it was interesting to me how that could be played into someone's mental. And like we just said, your mental is so powerful.
Yeah.
Your ideas, how you perceive things are so powerful.
And there's not one perception that's right. Like,
no, not at all.
The only thing that's true in this world is math. That's to some people that is going to be pretty controversial, but like, past like what we can prove on this earth and everything else, I say, like, whatever you want to believe in that is going to make you, you know, your psyche and your mental sane, like, believe in that. Because at the end of the day, there's not one way to perceive the world we live in. It's too complex. Everything is subjective. So many things are relative. So many things are subjective that if you think that one way is the right way, you are closing yourself into having a very, I guess, just
you're gonna be somewhat closed-minded if you think that there's only one way to view something. It's very important to think about everything as being relative, variable, and being open to any ideas of how to view.
Okay, so
problems.
we looked into philosophy, and philosophically, what I'm getting is that time is weird.
Time is very strange.
Time is very weird. I mean, we won't even like go too deep in how crazy, like actually how weird it is, but pulling from this philosophical view of time, what do you, I guess, in your research, what did you find? Just like, I guess, one thing you would leave today and tell someone, what would that be?
That's a great question. I have to give me 1 second to think about that for a second.
Okay, and I will tell you guys that the importance of just understanding time from a philosophical aspect, because I was researching, because our next part, wink, has to deal with more how we're going to take this idea of time and then apply it to our lives to try to, you know, be better, be, you know, more efficient in what we do, right? I've already probably given it away, but, and understanding that, like, approaching things from a philosophical standpoint, that the beginning of everything was actually a whole bunch of dudes just sitting there thinking. Socrates, Aristotle, when I think about it now, like, if you put those dudes into our society now, you're like, y'all ain't contributing nothing, bro. Like, y'all just sitting there thinking and giving out thoughts and ideas, but like, y'all ain't acting upon anything. But it's just because it was a time period where those thoughts and having those thoughts were so important to lead into actions. They were just laying the foundations of a lot of it. A lot of ideas and concepts come from philosophy, simply just because philosophy is just think, ask questions, question everything. It's a beauty of it. But Ben, what can I pull from it, man? You still ain't tell me.
And so it's good. The main message, the things we can learn from time, it's gonna get better after next episode. And then the third episode after that, we're going to be able to really pull some crazy ideas.
I mean,
but for now,
I just want to know, what for now was just most interesting, most relevant, or most important or useful thing from this.
So, I mean, I think the most relevant idea is that similar to how we need to meet someone at a certain event to be there, that time defines our reality.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, like we said, that if you believe in the A series, your reality is now. And if you believe in the B series, your reality is essentially infinite. Everything exists. Thank you for listening to another episode of the Adapt or Die podcast.
For more information about us, follow us on Instagram at Adapt or Die, or find us on TikTok at AOD Podcast. You can also watch the podcast on our YouTube channel at AOD Co, spelled AODCO.
We hope you enjoyed this episode, and as always, continue to explore and adapt.